Hey gamers, welcome back to the channel. I want to talk a little bit more about triumphs today. Particularly because I made that video about the onslaught triumph and some people in the comments, as expected, were saying certain things regarding just don't do it, triumphs, yada yada yada, complaining about it, complaining about my thoughts on it, which I totally expected. And I just wanted to talk about triumphs in general. And I think there's not a lot of talk about this because, usually people just shut up and do it, or they don't do it and they don't care. So there's kind of like a no in between. So what is a triumph? What is a triumph? And I think this kind of goes down to your own, subjective opinion on triumphs or what they should and shouldn't be. But I wanted to talk about what I think triumphs and should entail or should be, because I think some of the triumphs that do come out recently or have come out in the past get a bad taste in the mouth for some people and kind of ruin the triumph grind. And again, this is mainly coming up because of the onslaught triumph that's just ludicrously high. There's also been some in the past that are bad. And I kind of wanted to point out what I believe triumphs are. And it goes to two things. There's triumphs, and then there's stat trackers. These are entirely separate. One of these stat trackers is something you like to show off. I did this amount of grinding, or I did this amount of lost sectors, or I did this amount of gambit resets, or I did this amount of runs of this seasonal activity. I think a lot of people like to show off like how much fractalin they bank during that one event, or maybe they show off how many runs they did of whatever, and it says 69,420. I don't know. But usually this is the fun number of I like to make a number go up to show off. Triumphs, on the other hand, I like to think as an achievement. So what do I think of as an achievement? Again, kind of depends on who you are, but I think like day ones as an achievement. So if I like go to a raid, for instance, and I go to Salvation's Edge, completing a raid is an achievement. Completing on Master is an achievement. Completing in 48 hours is an achievement. Those are triumphs. And then all these special ones, I think they're kind of weird, but I do think they're kind of fun because as long as you do them with an intent, like, oh, can you complete all Salvation's Edge on Void? Like, that's kind of a challenge. Can you complete it? Then do it. The challenges, I think, are like a triumph. And it's kind of like a checklist. So some of these other ones where it's like, okay, did you complete all of the episode? Okay, I guess that could be a triumph. Or if it's like a lost sector or activity, did you do each of the activities? So like you can just kind of show off I did everything, but it's not like a number. It's not like, oh, for instance, this Nightmare Hunt Anguish. It's not say run Nightmare Hunt Anguish 50,000 times. If you wanted to run Nightmare Anguish 50,000 times, where would I put that? That is a stat tracker. And if you want to show off that you did it 50,000 times, that's not a triumph. That's here's a stat that I want to show off. It's a stat tracker. And that's why I think these triumphs or new triumphs, I guess, or old triumphs that have come out where it's just an absurd number that you have to reach, is kind of causing this overlap, or I don't know, it's like an unintentional push towards, what should be a stat tracker and now is a triumph. And it's not like a checklist. It's not like a complete set activity that's a challenge or there's something difficult. It's complete set activity a certain amount of times to get this triumph. Now, is that a triumph to some people? Sure. I think running the same activity over and over again is not really a triumph. It's more of a chore. Particularly if it's not benefiting you in any other way. Like, for instance, the 50 waves, most people can do like a couple and have all the stuff they need and call it there. Back in the day when it was the ruffians or the treasure lane combatants, again, getting a certain amount of those is not really a triumph. Like that was a challenge for me to do. It was a chore. And I think that's where it's kind of getting this overlap. So I kind of wanted to go back to the idea of triumphs in general. And that brings me to, again, the website I was kind of showing in the last video, if you watched that, about the onslaught triumph. Particularly with the fight to the end, the complete 50 runs, but now 40 because they nerfed it, of onslaught salvation, and the score and dominator triumph, which is defeat the bosses one, which is 50 bosses, which is pretty much 50 waves. So that's kind of what this all sparked up, and I wanted to kind of address some things that people were saying in the comments about it. And that's when I want to also go back to a previous video I made where I talked about max triumph score. I talked about triumph hunting. I talked about like what has ruined or tainted that kind of title. But on Charlemagne, I showed this before, and you can kind of watch these numbers adjust as more and more people complete them. As more people, people just bite the bullet and I guess go on Onslaught Salvation. Um, but it's still pretty low. And I think what I was doing in the last video is I was comparing it to other rare triumphs. And this is where it kind of goes back to that stat tracker. Again, I don't know why Charlemagne is showing all these crazy triumphs. They never used to do this. But like these are like bugged or something. So another website I like to use is Braytech, which is a beautiful website if you do not know. But if you go on Braytech, you can go to this like rarity of triumphs, and you can see how rare they are. Some of these I think are like also kind of bugged. I don't know how 2 people have this triumph. I don't even think this is out yet. But you can look at the score and dominator to fight to the end. So these are the rarest triumphs in the game. I do think what they did is they actually hid some of the fishing triumphs. Because I believe the fishing triumphs were the rarest triumphs in the game. And if you went back to my video where I talked about max triumph score, I go over what is the rarest triumph. And this is right before the final shape. And the rarest triumphs in the game at that time were catching fish. Catching fish was the rarest triumphs. The top 3, if you don't want to count, like this is a bug triumph, the Crown of Sorrow, the 50... Fifth Horseman, which is a triumph, it's a medal. It's catch 3 different types of fish was the rarest triumph before the final shape. I think they're still on here. They're probably, I think Fight to the End might have them beat. But again, I think Charlemagne just kind of bugged right now with this weird display. Oh, there they are. So I guess Flawless Salvation's Edge. I think that's a triumph. Catching fish being the same rarity as Flawless Salvation's Edge, I think there's a problem. If catch a certain amount of fish has the same rarity as do a flawless raid, which I think some people have coined, one of the hardest flawless raids out there. Anyway, so looking back at the Braytech, you can see the 2 like top ones, if you ignore the, I think, bugged one, I don't know, again, how 2 people have that, is the 2, in my opinion, stat tracker triumphs. If you want to show off how many runs you've done of Salvation's Edge, cool. Do 50 and you can put that on your stat tracker. But I just don't think it's a triumph. But when you compare it to the others, again, you see, what is this? Day 1, Salvation's Edge. And then all of these are recent triumphs that they actually added to go back and do old raids with a new subclass. So go back and do Vault of Glass with Strand, go back and do Vault of Glass with Stasis, Deep Stone Crypt, etc. And then they have a bunch of them they added for dungeons. And those I think are fine. I think they're kind of silly, but I do go and do those. And I actually kind of enjoy some of them just because you can just switch the subclass right at the end when you complete the raid or the encounter. But if you actually run it through the whole entire thing as a subclass, it might add a little uniqueness and cool. You can do whatever. But again, it's a 1 run, 1 checklist. You're probably going to do it anyway. This gives you something like, for instance, when they added it for Vesper. Like, we were doing runs anyway, and I'm like, hey, guys, can we just do this one on Arc? I'm like, sure. And then it adds, like, kind of uniqueness. Sure. But like, even here, like, Solo Flawless, a dungeon. Solo Flawless, any of the dungeons or activities. Or, do some activity, like, these are both seasonal ones, with some weird restraint. Like, that is a triumph. But just do said activity 50 times. That is a chore. And that's kind of what I'm going to get in this video. Because I was looking at the leaderboard. So I was like, okay, how many people have actually, in the Max Triumph Score community, are actually doing this stuff right now? Because I feel like I've been kind of holding off. And I know a lot of people usually hold off until the end of the season to actually go after some triumphs. Because they can hope for a nerf or hope for, more kind of triumphs to unlock later in the season. So you can knock them all out at once instead of doing one and then waiting and then having to do another one later. And usually I like to check this at the end of a season. So for instance, when I made the Max Triumph Score video, I did this at the end, right before the final shape. So everyone who played through that whole year, if you were a Max Triumph Score player, you had to have Max Triumph Score as of this video because if you didn't, all those triumphs are going to be sunset with that year's worth of content, and you wouldn't be able to achieve it anymore. So that's what I like to do at the end of a season. So doing it now isn't the best kind of grasp because, again, I'm waiting. I know a bunch of other people are waiting. So you're not going to get the fullest picture. But again, in this video, I kind of go over some of the triumphs again, but I also look at the max triumph score. And you can kind of go to this website and see like who has number one. And at that time, there were 70 people. I think I was in like the first page here, right here, like down the list, about 10 or 15 down the list. And now, 70 people, if I go to check that net today, one. And everyone else is kind of just piling on at different staggered moments as they figure out what triumphs they actually want to do. Or maybe some people are just not going to do them. But I'm, farther down because I haven't done a lot of the onslaught ones because I don't care. Hoping they're going to nerf it again. And it's kind of sad to see a bunch of max triumph score people fall off the list. Again, I think a lot of these are going to wait till the end of the season and they're going to get back on the list. But it's just sad. And again, another website you can do is the Braytech, but they don't have total triumph score as a filter. But you can look at active and then legacy. Legacy is never going to change. So like I think I'm down here on the list on number one. Collection, again, no one really does that unless you have a bunch of money. And then active triumph score is kind of what you can look at. But active triumph score is a little weird again. And I'm still confused how this guy has, slightly more than everyone else. I know there was a bug triumph in the final shape launch, but I believe it was patched. But yeah, these are the websites I like to look at. And again, I mainly want to make this video to talk about the stat tracker versus triumph conversation. Do you think every triumph or every stat tracker should be a triumph, or every triumph to be a stat tracker? What do you guys think on that? Because in my opinion, catching like a certain amount of fish, I have a buddy on my friends list that I met, and he's like the number one person who caught 500,000 fish or something like that. It's like, that's a stat tracker. But if Bungie decided to say catch 500,000 fish as a triumph, that just doesn't make any sense. One, you show off about how much you did it. One, you show off because it was challenging. And I think we're getting this overlap where, particularly with the onslaught triumphs, where it's not really a triumph, it's just do it a bunch. And that feels more like a stat tracker to me. Anyway, just wanted to make another video talking about the subject. Feel free to go crazy in the comments. I like reading those. I was liking and responding to some people in the last video. And if you haven't, please check out this video, the max triumph score. It's the I have max triumph score and why you don't care. I think it's a great video if you're interested in triumphs. And this was right before the final shape, so it really encompasses everything that was going on at the time. Before the downfall, honestly. But again, even at that time, it was bad. You had a lot of stuff in the past of just bad triumphs that should have been, honestly, stat trackers. But okay. Appreciate you guys for watching. Stay tuned for maybe some more videos about triumphs or whatnot. Just wanted to make a follow-up to the last video because I think some people were kind of confused or like, I don't know. It was an interesting conversation. You should read some of those comments. But anyway, have a good one. Peace out. Catch you guys in the next one.